Welcome back to Top Lenders in America. This is Charlie Madison, and I'm with my friends Chris Haynes. And one of the really interesting things about this episode is I reached out to the realtors that I know in my hometown, and I said, which loan officer do you like the most? Who should I talk to? And like 9 out of 10 all said, you got to talk to Chris Haynes. And so I'm so excited to have you on the show today, Chris.
I appreciate that, man. That's very flattering to hear that some good realtors out there think highly of me, man. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, I was reaching out to him, texting, and then like I got to the place where I expected the realtors that I respect were just going to respond with Chris Haynes, and that's what kept happening. And so I always like to start off with this: how did you get into the business?
Oh man, I think I've told this story a few times, but I sometimes call it dumb luck. But honestly, I think I was guided here, right? I think God's hands in everything. But my sister's boyfriend in 2003 was in the mortgage business, and I was a senior in college, and he's like, "Man, you can make pretty good money at this. You get to talk to people, kind of a fun job." And I'm doing it, and I like it. In 2004, when I moved to Nashville, I joined the company he was working for in 2004. Yeah, man, I fell into it out of college, and I didn't know if this would be a 5-year gig or a 10-year, whatever. And I've been doing it ever since. So the way
Yeah.
God works sometimes, right? You take one step in that direction, and next thing you know, it's years down the road and still doing it.
So this is your 20th anniversary.
Yeah, coming up on it. I got into it in '04 officially here, so next summer will be 20 years. Yes,
That's
sir.
amazing. That's amazing. And I'm always curious, like, what, why do you still wake up and do it? Like, what gets you fired up in the morning to keep doing this?
Yeah, man. I think what we do helps people, right? Home ownership is the number one way for people to have wealth. If you don't own your own home, it's really difficult. Not that you can't do it, but it's really difficult for the normal person, which I think everybody's a normal person, to accumulate any kind of wealth if you're just paying rent every month. Helping people obtain that home ownership, educating them on how to, and I mentioned this to almost all my clients, the ability to possibly go out there and create a rental property, right? Maybe buy your second house and turn that first one into a rental property if you want two or three more. I've talked to folks that had that dream and have gone out and bought 5 or 6 rental properties or even more. And so I love helping people do that. I think the pride of home ownership is a big deal. And I've always liked finances. So when I was in college, before I decided to become a mortgage originator, loan officer, my other option, though, I was thinking about doing was financial planning. So I like the numbers. I like how money can grow. And I really love educating people on the process. That's one of the things I think is special about our process. Helping people is just how we educate them about the process and about how you can grow your money and about the financial implications of owning a house. And now I have employees here, and I'm able to influence people for good and hopefully spread God's love in all that we do, man. There's a lot of good that you can have when you have a job that you love and that you come in and you get to help people every day.
Yeah. Well, what is it that you enjoy about helping people build their wealth?
Man, I think it's just seeing the light bulb go off sometimes when you talk to people about what's possible. We have one of um, the little sheet we share with people. Actually, man, I have it printed out, and I didn't even have this planned. I just have it on my desk. This little sheet right here. I don't know how well you can see it, but it says "Win the real
Yeah.
life game of Monopoly." Okay,
Oh, that's
so every
awesome.
every home buyer, we go through and say, "Hey, yeah, man," and that's one of the things that we go through with every single person. And sometimes it's a 2-minute conversation about that, and sometimes people really want to go a little bit deeper. But it talks about how you build wealth through owning real estate and helping people financially. Everybody has to learn. Everybody starts at zero. I started at zero. I got married and we were broke. Right? Got married. I
Yeah.
got married at 23. My wife was still in school. I think we had $400 in our bank account, like, and I know that's more than you always hear people that were like negative and all this stuff, but
Right.
that's not a lot. That doesn't pay the bills long. And this was
Yeah.
right after college. I wasn't even in the mortgage business yet. She was in school, and I'm like, oh man, what are we going to do here? And I had conversations with people about how to. I remember I talked to a guy that owned several rental properties. Like, and you can, if you own a couple rental properties, you can have money that comes to you without having to go work for that money. You can still have a job, and then you have this extra money that comes in. I was like, oh, that's very interesting. I started reading books. One was the Real Millionaire Real Estate Investor. Gary Keller
Yeah.
co-wrote that book, and it's really good. I probably read that in '05, '06, somewhere in that time frame. But man, helping folks see. because it's just not a normal thing. Like parents don't teach it, the school doesn't even teach you how to balance a checkbook. And when you show people, hey, if you own a rental property, it's the rent versus own on this first one. Buying a house versus paying rent for 15 years on a $350,000 house with just 4% appreciation, the difference $385,000 in your net worth
That's real
after
money.
15 years versus paying rent, right? That's real money. That's a lot of money. And if buy one house and then you buy a second house and maybe turn the first one into a rental property, now you got two houses doing that for 15 years. You can do three or four houses and you can do really well over time. And it's hard for the brain to expand on time, right? The pounding effect. Oh, I can add 10%, I can get that. But you start doubling and tripling and quadrupling, and your brain doesn't really calculate those numbers until you really put it on paper and show people. I just love to help people see that versus renting. There's nothing wrong with renting. I rented, right? We rented the
Yeah.
first house we lived in. We got married. We rented for a while. We moved to Nashville. I wanted to buy immediately, but we rented. Like we were here, we were new in town. We rented for 9 months or a year. And then we bought a house and I bought several rental properties and things like that since. And it's been a huge blessing to my family to have made those decisions at that time. Just I love telling people that story and then helping them make the decision to get into real estate because I know so many people who have done so well over time in real estate.
Yeah. And I'm right. This isn't just theory. You actually have your own rentals as well. Is that right?
Oh yeah, man. I bought my first rental property, I guess in '07, and I set that goal again. Read some books, and I had a goal of buying 1 to 2 rental properties a year, and I've pretty much done that since '07. And so yeah, we've got several rental properties, and even invested. Don't own the whole apartment complex, but invested into some syndication and things like that, which is cool. And yeah, man. So I definitely it's something that's easy for me to talk and I practice what I preach, so to speak. Right. So
Yeah.
when people ask me and I have people that want to get into rental property, hey, man, I can be your guy. I can certainly help you through this process because I've done it. I also know the pitfalls of renting to the wrong people and that kind of stuff. And that's the biggest thing people get really scared of, but it's not that hard, right? And you
Yeah.
might make a mistake or two along the way, but you learn from it. And pretty much over time, you pretty much can't go wrong, right? If you try to buy a house and sell it in a year, well, you don't know what the market's going to do in a year, maybe not even in 2 years, but 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, right? If you do a 30-year fixed loan, in 30 years, the house is paid for. Even
Right.
if the values go up and down during that time, you're going to have a paid for asset that most likely is going to triple, if not more, in 30 years. So you look back at the last 30 years, it's done a lot more than just triple. So
Those are good numbers.
and with inflation, right? We see inflation. Yeah, exactly. With inflation, generally homes track inflation, and we're going to have inflation for, it's not going, I don't think it's going away anytime soon. And with that, most likely we'll see home prices continue to appreciate. The short term, we never know. But long term, when you look long enough, you're probably going to see home prices go up. They're not making any more land, right? So if you
Right.
want land, you got to buy what's there. And generally, we do really well over time.
I'm curious, having those rentals, having that income, like what does that do for you and your family knowing that you've got that?
Man, I think it certainly does give a little bit more of a financial piece about things, knowing that you've got rental income that's coming in, you got equity in home and things like that, which is it's a nice thing. But man, I do know I don't put my trust in riches and wealth. Like I do think that God has given me the ability and the talent, and I've got to be a good steward of that. In the end, man, I got to trust in God, right? Because
Yeah.
I put my trust in Him, and I know that He's always taking care of me. He's going to take care of me in the future and ultimately going to take care of me after this life as well. So while I think I got to make good decisions, that he's given me that responsibility, need to make great decisions and make good investments because that also gives me the ability to give to the church and to people who are in need. Ultimately, I'm going to rely on him and know that no matter what, right? Because who knows, right? Anything can happen. The stock market could go way down, and home values could go way down. You just never know what can happen in the world. A 9/11 type event affects things very quickly. So ultimately, man, I'm going to do the best I can every day, live for him, and just that's all we can do our best and let the chips fall where they may.
Yeah. How does your faith play into your business? One of the things, talking to other agents, they said, Chris is, one, he's an amazing guy. He knows his business. He's got a great business. And, he's faith is at the forefront. How do you see it playing in your business and your vision?
Yeah. And I love you sharing that. I love that people do recognize that. I think over time, right, I wasn't as outgoing or bold in speaking about my faith 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Over the last 5, 6, 7 years, I've made it more of a point just to share that as I've done more business, affect more people. I do business with more people every year. It's new people that they don't know me from anybody. So one thing that I do, I always try to when I do a letter, we call it a letter of the heart, right? Just say this is
Yeah.
what's going on in my life. This is something that I try to write that to my clients at least 5 times a year. It's usually every other month. Sometimes with holidays and stuff, I might miss a month in there. I'm usually about 4 or 5, sometimes 6 times a year. I'll write that, and it almost always has something with my faith. Maybe it's something we're struggling with. I've written different ones with different topics, but I try to tie that into my faith. One thing that we do here at the office on Tuesday mornings, Charlie, which I shared this with you before, Tuesday mornings at 8:30, we have a Bible study. I lead it. Everybody in my office is invited. They're paid at 8:30, right? They're on the clock. And so from 8:30 to
Yeah.
9, they can get paid to come and study the Bible, man. And I believe as a Christian, this business is my platform. This gives me the ability to have the influence on people. And man, I don't force my faith on anybody.
Yeah.
It's something that I share because man, why would I not share something that's been so amazing for me and get me through these crazy times we're in? Right, we're
Right.
our business, our industry's down 65, 70% from where it was. How do you get through that? Well, man, if you don't have faith and you're seeing the things going on with Russia and Israel and all the other things, it's tough if you don't have that, man. I feel I'm compelled to share that, but I don't force that on anybody, right? If
Yeah.
somebody wants to listen and wants to talk about it, man, I'll talk about it all day long. And if not, no, you don't have to agree with me, and you don't have to you don't have to be at Bible studies optional. Nobody
Right.
has to be there, but it's pretty cool when you see several folks showing up to Bible studies on Tuesday mornings and learning, man. Because as the leader of it, I have to study more and I learn more than
Right.
anybody else, right? Because I have to be prepared to
Yeah.
make sure I'm ready to lead that every Tuesday. Man, I think faith is at the center of what I'm doing right now, and I want that to be something that people know about me, right? Because they do have
Yeah.
questions or they're going through something. I want them to be able to reach out to me, and I can hopefully be a blessing to them. So, Charlie, I've got a purpose statement. Super simple. My purpose is to be love, create laughter, and be a blessing. Right? Love is the number one and number two commandment in the Bible. If the Bible says love God, love your neighbor.
Right.
Creating laughter, man. Our business is so freaking crazy. Sometimes we get all out and everything, and man, we gotta learn to sit back and laugh. At home, man, I'm laughing all the time with the kids, right? I'm picking at them, and sometimes in business, two folks and don't enjoy it. And then last minute is to be a blessing, right? And if I can be a blessing, Charlie, to you, anybody that's watching this, Charlie, you're welcome to put up my cell phone number, email address. Anybody wants to talk about faith, you're welcome to do that, man. Call me,
Yeah.
email me. I'm glad to have a conversation around that because that's really what I'm called to do. If you want, learn about my business and talk about mortgages, that's awesome too. But yeah, man, yeah, that's something that's a very, very important to me, and I've become a lot more comfortable sharing that over the last few years.
Yeah. Yeah. What is your phone number if someone wants to reach out to you?
Yeah, man, I'm gonna give Let me see which one's best. I'm gonna give my work cell phone. Okay,
Perfect.
it's 615-945-3994. So 615-945-3994. And yeah, the best thing to do because I'm always in stuff is text me. Text
Yeah.
me, hey, this is so and so. I want to talk to you about this. And then as soon as I get a chance, we'll connect.
That's awesome. One of the things I always like to ask is, without naming names, but you impact individuals and families, and so without naming names, like, is there a story that comes to mind of like a family or someone that like it just like brings a smile to your face, like when you remember like how you were able to help them?
Yeah, man. Yeah, I've got a client from a few years ago that came to me and was like, hey, I've never done rentals. I know that you've done that and I want to do that. And I told him when I tell everybody, it's like, man, I have a lot of people come to me and say they want to do rentals and they never buy their first one. Right? That's the hard one. The first one is the hard one. I said, if you'll buy that first one, you'll buy a second one. You might buy a third one. You might buy more. And we had that conversation a few months later, 6 months. I can't remember, 6 months, maybe a year. He came back and he bought a rental. Right, he got his first rental. And a year later, another rental, and now he owns four or five, and has done really well. Right, he bought them. He probably started buying them in 2014, 15, so 8, 9 years ago. He's buying his first rentals, and I don't know exactly how many he's got at the moment, but he's done really well with that. And so that's one of those stories where it's like, man, I know that, and not that I have any, hopefully I influenced him, but he's the one that took the action. He's the one that took the risk because it always seems like a risk. It
Right.
always seems like houses are too high right now. Even in 2012, 13, because they went way down and they started coming up. I remember people in 2013, oh man, they've come up too fast. They're going to go back down. 10 years ago, and we've pretty much had a steady rise. It did finally, it flattened out in 22 and going into this year, but it's probably going to continue the rise over the next 10 years as well. Yeah, that's one of the stories of somebody that I hopefully positively influenced to take those risks, and he's done really well because of it.
Yeah. I love that. Well, I'd love to know one of my other favorite questions is um, if I could wave a magic wand and at the end of a transaction, someone could say anything about you, what would you want them to say about you at the end of a transaction?
Oh man, that's a great question. I would love for them to say that we made the complex mortgage process simple, right? That my team took great care of them, um, and hopefully that they could tell by how we treat them that I'm a man of faith, right? Sometimes my team takes care of a lot of folks and they don't have a ton of interaction with me, which is it's just part of having more people. I can't be involved in every single conversation and everything day to day, but man, if they felt like it was simple, the team took great care of them. Of course, it closed on time. That has to be a given, right? But yeah, and hopefully that they could see our faith and how we run our office, how we treat people, see our faith shine through that. Man, that would be the ultimate testimonial right there.
Yeah. And I don't know that I've asked this question before, but I'd love to know, like, same thing, wave a magic wand, your kids are grown up. What do you want your kids to say about you?
Oh man, I had a guy that gave me a quote how he defined success, and I don't know the exact. It's kind of like a little poem. He it was basically said, I define success by what my kids say about me when I'm not around,
Hmm.
right? So if my kids think positively of me, man, I definitely want them to know that you said when they're grown, right?
You're right. Yeah.
So when they're grown, man, I want them to know that I was there, right? Because in our business, man, whether it's loan officers, realtors, whatever industry you're in this industry as a whole, man, we can work 24/7. You got to be careful falling into the trap. So, man, I want them to know that I loved them, that I was there, and man, that I taught them the right thing, and hopefully they're leading their own faith lives with their faith-filled families and positively affecting the people around them. Yeah, man, if they know I was there for them, I loved them, and that I taught them about Jesus and faith, I did my job. Doesn't matter what they chose to do. That they can work a minimum wage job. My boys think they're going to the NBA right now.
Of
They're
course.
still
Of
young, especially
course.
my second grader. My second grader, you ask him, what are you going to do? NBA. I'm like, all right, man. I don't know if you're going to be tall enough, but hey, I'm not going to squash that dream. Steph Curry's not
Yeah.
that tall either. He's doing
That's
just fine.
all
So,
right.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
One of the things I really love about you is that, like, you've built your business, you've got your team, apparently what you're doing with your team is pretty awesome. Like I said, all the realtors told me to reach out to you. And with that, I love you actually coach your kids basketball like in
Yeah,
the middle of the afternoon right now, right? Like 1 to 3.
yeah, man. So I'm coaching. So my oldest boys are seventh and eighth grade. Okay, so they're on the junior high team at Friendship. It's a private school, Friendship Christian School out here. I'm the volunteer assistant. Okay, so we have a
Nice.
head coach, and I'm the volunteer. And the last 2 years, I've coached the sixth grade team. So my oldest was in sixth grade, and my youngest was in fifth. I coached the sixth grade, and I was the head coach of the sixth grade. Then my older one moved up to seventh, and then I coached the sixth. And I'm also coaching my second grade. He plays just on Saturday, so I'm coaching two teams. We play 2 or 3 games a week, and most days from 1 to 3 I leave at 1, get there at 1:30. We practice from 1:30 to 3. Then I work from home from 3:15, 3:20 to the end of the day. Yeah, man, and that's something that I've really wanted to work toward to be able to have the time to spend with them, right? Because again, how many dads get to be at practice at 2:30 in the afternoon,
Right.
and I know that's a huge privilege for me, and I have an amazing team that allows that. Right? Without a team, you just can't do that in this business. You have to be on call 24/7 and can't make that happen. So I give my team a ton of credit, and I feel super blessed to be able to do that. And yeah, man, seventh and eighth grade right now, my big ones, and they're good. They're doing really good. My oldest one had a 23-point game the other night.
Wow.
And eighth grade, they only play 24 minutes. It's 6-minute quarters. So it's 24 minutes. He scored 23 points. He was pretty proud of himself. And I was, I have to admit, hey, man, it's a pretty good game to get almost a point a minute. It's like
Yeah.
an NBA player scoring 47, right? It's
Right.
almost a point a minute.
Yeah.
But
That's a good
anyway,
PER he has it there.
that's right. I think he might have been ball hogging or something, passed the ball a little bit. But no, I tell him to shoot. Every time you see it, I tell them all, okay, when you're open, you shoot the ball. And we got some pretty
Right.
good players on the team, and I think they're 6-1 right now. They're winning most of their games. We're having a lot of fun.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, your coaching mentality kind of comes out. And kind of last question, I know you're busy, and I want to ask, like, what would you share, to people that know you, someone thinking about maybe investing in their first home or buying, like one, again, how can they reach out to you? And like, what would you share to them in this moment going forward?
Yeah. So right now, as this is being recorded, interest rates are elevated, right? And a lot of people are hesitant, right? And honestly, there's fear, and I get it. There's some fear in the market. The first thing is if you're ready to buy a house, the timing's good. Now's a great time to do it. If you're not ready to buy a house and the timing's not good for you personally, whether it's your job, your marriage, your kid, whatever, right? If the timing's not good for you, I don't care if the rates are 2%. Don't buy a house when the timing's not right for you and your family. But if it is right, it's the right time to do it. I know there's a lot of what we call pent up demand, a lot of people waiting, and they're all waiting until rates hit something lower. What I feel like is going to happen, we're going to have a plateau with prices. Some prices have even come down. We're even seeing some MLS price reductions, but prices aren't going to come down a long way. They're just they just don't generally, right? My opinion. I don't have a crystal ball, but I think that we've seen the prices come down just a little bit. I think that right now you can get some negotiation, right? So if you
Yeah.
find the perfect house, you might get a little bit off the price. You might get the seller to pay some closing costs. Right now is a great time to buy a house. Take that higher rate, right? Take the rates are right now in the sevens. Man, that sounds crazy when 2 years ago I could have got 3% or even in the twos. We did lots of loans in the twos back
Yeah.
in 2020, 2021. And it seems like crazy to pay a rate in the sevens, but I say that rates are only fixed if rates go up, right? If rates go up, you're going to be happy you got a 7% rate. You're going to be like, oh man, they're now 8. I don't think they're going to go to 8 and 9. But if they do, you're going to be super happy that you have the rate you have. But they're not fixed when they go down, right? When
Right.
they go down, what do? You
You
call me back and say,
refinance.
hey, Chris, we want to refinance. We got the rate drop promise. We'll take care of all the lender fees. We'll take care of your appraisal fee. When rates drop, we'll help you refinance to that lower rate. So what we see is if you can buy a house today, lock in the price because when rates drop, because I heard the other day, if rates drop a point, 1%, nationwide, there'll be 15 million more people enter the market. Okay,
Yeah.
they're not all in our market. We're in Nashville. They're not all in our market, but if 15 million people nationwide enter the market, a few thousand enter the market here. Well,
Right.
there's not a few thousand extra houses just sitting around waiting to be bought. So when those rates drop a point, you're going to start seeing multiple offers. We're already seeing some. It's weird, even in this market, you're still seeing two. And sometimes, like I had lunch with a realtor today, and he said, "Man, one of my buyers, he'd been looking for 6 months, and he just lost out on a house. Like he came in second, multiple offer situation. Like man, right? And that's with rates elevated. So I say buy your house today, get the best deal you can get on it. We do need generally we want 6 payments made before we refinance, but 8 months down the right line, and maybe it's a year, maybe it's 2 years before rates really fall. But when that happens, then you just refinance. You've locked in your price. When rates fall, those prices are going to start going up. You're going to have 3 and 4 people bidding on it, and those people with that same house are going to have to pay more for it, and you get to pay what you paid for it, and you just drop your rate.
Right.
So my advice, if you're ready, if the time is right for you, and you qualify and you can afford the payment, take the jump now and save yourself that headache of what we had. Everybody acts like 2020 and 2021 was awesome, and it was, but it was also a big headache for buyers. I had a lot of buyers that couldn't buy a house because they were getting outbid by 20,000, 30,000, 50. I mean, we had people paying 80,000 over list price cash. Well, if you need
Right.
a loan and you're only putting down 20% or 10%, you lose out on that house.
Yeah.
So again, I shared my number earlier, but anybody that wants to contact me, 615-945-3994. We're glad to help. And Charlotte, my email, I don't know if you can put this somewhere in the links or something, but Haynes at preferredrate.com. And
C
glad to help
Haynes
and
at
glad to add.
preferredrate.com.
And
Awesome.
that's Haynes. Uh, a lot of people don't get the Y in there.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Chris. This was a great interview. Really glad to be friends with you. And I'll let you get back to work. I know you got a lot of stuff happening, and
And
so
no worries, man.
thanks.
Awesome, man. Appreciate you.
All right, bye.